Hi everyone, my name is Josh Cadu. I'm one of Miss Martinez's interns. I know some of you guys have seen me in the back of the classroom, just handing out papers or just observing the classroom. But this week, I'm teaching. Before we start, guys, I'm gonna hand you guys two sheets of paper. The first one is a KL chart about the age of exploration, and the next one is a reflection. Both are due at the end of class. Additionally, I want to go over a couple of rules, guys. While I am teaching this class, I want you guys to treat me with the same respect you would give Miss Martinez. She will also still be in the classroom as she's recording me right now. Additionally, guys, what I'm teaching you, she will be giving you guys a test on. So this does affect your grades. So please, please, please pay attention and do contribute during the discussions. So first thing I want to ask you guys, does anybody know what the age of exploration is? Does anyone? Can anyone just take a guess for me? Because a couple of things we're going to go over is what is the age of exploration? What countries were involved? What factors contribute to the age of exploration? And what are some of the effects of the age of exploration? If any of you guys know this, just write down a couple words, a couple sentences of what you guys think. Take a guess of what countries were involved. The age of exploration. As you know, exploration is growth. So what factors do you think contributed to the age of exploration? Maybe the growth of people, cough, cough, write that down. Or some of the effects. As we know, as technology grows, as people discover, knowledge grows, right? Leaps and bounds. So let me start off what the age of exploration actually was. It was a historical period where European countries explored the rest of the world in search of goods, lands, and even trade partners. Make sure to focus on this part, guys. From the 1400s to the 1600s, that's the blank period of 200 years. That's the age of discovery. Let me see. Can anyone take a guess of what countries were involved? Bobby, what do you think? Britain? Correct. As we know, Britain explored all over the countries, all over the world. Sorry, I apologize, world. You back there in the back, Melissa. What do you think? Hmm. Spain, Bazinga. You're right. As we know, Portugal, Spain, France, England, and Holland, the Netherlands, all sent out explorers to explore the United States, U.S., and this side of the globe. Can anyone take a guess which was the first group, the Usain Bolt of explorers, to get sent out? Do I hear anyone? Anyone at all? The first was Portugal. Portugal began at the beginning of the 1400s. Under Prince Henry, they sailed from the Atlantic coast of Africa in search of new trade routes to Asia. As previous knowledge has taught us, the land routes of Asia was very tough, was very hard. There were a lot of mountains, and not a lot of people survived. They also developed a new kind of ship which made it easier to travel with, as we mentioned before. The effects of the age of exploration led us to new technology. In second place comes Spain. Spain sponsored Christopher Columbus. Everybody knows who Christopher Columbus is, yes? Yes, good. Instead of finding a route to Asia, he landed in the Caribbeans, which they didn't know existed at the time. They had no idea that any of this was here. They had no idea. They just thought if they crossed over, they would end up going to Asia. They were in for a surprise. As we know, guys, we call dibs. So Portugal and Spain both signed a treaty dividing the unexplored parts of the world between Portugal and Spain. Portugal got the east side, and Spain got the west side. Each country had exclusive rights and wealths found in this section of the world. What that means is the Native Americans, the indigenous people, they had no rights there. Whatever they found. I don't know if you guys have ever heard this. They believe that without a flag, there is no country. Because only Portugal and Spain had flags, they didn't count the indigenous people, the people who were born on the land for generations, as actual people. They came, they conquered, they enslaved. Here's a map to show you where the Treaty of Tordesillas spread. The east, All countries were left out of this, and similar treaties were signed by the Portuguese and Spaniards. When England and the French began exploring, they ignored the land claims made by Portugal and Spain. They did not believe those at all. They were like, these are just sheets of paper, it doesn't matter to us. In 1497, England sponsored John Cabot's voyage in search of the northwestern passage to Asia. Instead, he discovered North America. As we mentioned before, guys, they had no idea this was here, any of this. They thought it would just lead to another part of Asia. Instead of taking that basic trade route all the way through the land to the Genghis Khan with the hunters, the animals, the mountains, and back, they decided it's better to go by ship all the way through. And normally, they would go around Africa, towards Asia, then back. Does anyone have any questions? I know my drawing skills aren't the best, guys, but I think you guys get the idea of it. Over the next 2 centuries, next 200 years, Europeans discovered and explored North America, South America, the Caribbean, Asia, Africa, and Australia. So now time for our next question, guys. What factors contributed to the age of exploration? Has anybody written anything on the I already know? I know this is a tough one, guys. It's okay. So the factors that really contributed to this was new navigational technology, the need for new trade routes to Asia, mercantilism. As we know, when people want materials, when people start buying more and more things, price goes up, yes? So you have to find a way to keep the price and the supply generated, because there may be all this need, but no supply means a lot of people will not have it, and a lot of people get very upset about it. So the new technology, guys. As previously mentioned before, Portugal got the Caravel, the Dutch got the Durfenkind. Both of these ships, imagine the newest generation of iPhone compared to the original generation of iPhone. Completely different, right? It's like putting the world's fastest sports car against a Pinto, for those who know what a Pinto is. And that also brings to the fact of the competition. So imagine there's Ferrari, there's Corvette, Mercedes, Mustang. All these are different countries. They're fighting against one another. So the Dutch, the Portugal, Spaniards, England are all fighting against one another. So during times like this, technology would always be on the rise. They would make faster ships, more maneuverable, because if they went into each other, the Portugal and the Dutch, they would fire cannons at each other. These cannonballs would sink ships the moment they hit one. So what they did was make ships be able to dodge, make ships more stealthy, make ships able to faster to pass by to make it from one place to another. Additionally, with the discovery of the astrolabe and the magnetic compass. Astrolabe tells us the latitude of the ship, so it's easier for people to map out and follow that same path. So the first ship, would have a lot of trouble reaching North America, but once they came back, they would give the next ship a map, which made their journey easier and easier and easier, making it more streamlined, making it more efficient. Also, the magnetic compass would help these ships stay on track, because true north helps validate where the ship is compared to the longitude. So if he's at point A, another ship is at point B, using those two things, they're able to tell you the distance. It is probably one of the earliest forms of GPS, if you think about it, global positioning system. Because right now, GPS can tell me if I'm within 5 feet of something. But back in the day, this was the closest they got. And just with GPS, there's maps. So they're able to make more and more accurate maps. Before, it was just a guesstimation. You guys have heard that in math, where just take a guesstimation of it, like it's somewhere in this area. But now they're with the latitude and the compass directions, they're able to be more and more accurate, making them more efficient and fast routes. And the trade routes to Asia. A lot of Asian spices, supplies, silk, everybody wanted. Because imagine now, has anybody ever heard the thing about chocolate being used as currency? You have, Billy? Good. What do you know about it? Chocolate was used as currency, and like the rich people were the ones who used it a lot, but they also like put hot water in it so they could drink it. Exactly. But after a while, chocolate became more and more common, more and more readily available. So the middle class got to it. But the supply went down, so it made it more scarce. So this trade route to Asia, there are more and more people rising to the middle class, more and more people having expectations to have access to things. So these trade routes, instead of going over land, which is quite dangerous, as I mentioned before, they decided to take ships because it's less likely the ships to get raided, ships to get attacked. The only thing that would really affect them are storms. But when they're on land, there could be bandits, warlords, an axle could break, animals could die. So honestly, traveling through water is a lot safer. What do the Europeans want to trade with Asia? As I mentioned before, cotton, silk, spices, because they couldn't grow that in that climate. And the spices were highly valued because they used to flavor food, used in medicine, and as elite status, as I mentioned before, something the higher middle class wanted. And why the sea route? So this is the exact route as I mentioned before. When the Ottoman Empire conquered Constantinople in 1453, they blocked the European travel to Asia via the familiar land routes. So they raided those who would travel through it because they were from Europe. Because the Turks controlled the trade routes, they could place hefty taxes on the spices. Rather than pay the extras for the spices, several European countries searched for routes to Eastern Indies. As I mentioned before, they wanted different routes because it was just too dangerous or too expensive in some cases to travel through land. Here's some estimates of how the sea route used to look. So the Silk Road, as we previously learned maybe a couple weeks ago, about the route they would normally take through Persia, India, and China, and then return back. They would travel through the Mediterranean Sea, through the Arabic Peninsula, towards India and back. It was quite dangerous though. So they decided, Christopher Columbus decided, instead of me going through that thin route where there's a lot of bandits, a lot of pirates, and it isn't the best sea, I'm gonna go that way and just go around and hit China because there's nothing that way. No one has said anything's that way ever. Well, he found out the hard way there is. And another important thing, mercantilism. Mercantilism is an economic and political system where government controls trade. So as we know, import export. Yes, we have something they want, they have something we want. We would trade more materials to get things that we want, that things that the higher class people, the higher class, middle class people wanted. One element of mercantilism is rivalry. This comes from the belief there is a finite, limited amount of wealth in the world. So as one nation gets wealthier, it takes the opportunities away from their rivals. Remember how many countries were sending out explorers? There was about 5 we mentioned before, and there's a lot of smaller ones that are doing the exact same. Imagine you're sharing a pie. Everybody close your eyes. I want you guys just close your eyes and imagine this. Imagine you're sharing a pie with your friends. The more you eat, the more people that eat the pie, the smaller piece that you get. While that is actually acceptable when there's a piece of pie, this is, however, a fallacy. Does anyone know what a fallacy is? A fallacy is a false understanding. So European nations viewed their wealth, especially precious metals, during the age of explorer. They felt this wealth was limited, and each country was hoping to obtain as much as possible. While some of this is true, some of this is an exaggeration that caused a lot of issues. With countries being so selfish, they cause a lot of instability with the other things. They sent out so many explorers that it caused later on I'll explain more. I'm sorry, guys. Another element of mercantilism is self-sufficiency. That means the nations did not want to rely on trade with other nations to meet their needs. Nations want to be able to make all their goods that they needed. They want to be self-reliant. Everybody knows what a good is. Also, another really important thing was they wanted to export more. They wanted to trade their stuff more than taking stuff in. This is extremely important. In order for a country to make all the goods that it needs raw material. Some basic raw materials are wheat, sugar, wood, and wool. Each of these can be transformed by artisans to make things. I'm pretty sure most of us understand how to make bread. Water, wheat, yeast, flour. It's pretty simple, but then we can sell the bread, right? So last question, before I have you guys work on the worksheets and before the bell rings. What were some effects of the age of exploration? Globalization, colonization, slavery, and the Columbus Exchange. During this week, we'll cover a lot of this, and even next week too. Globalization. Can anyone tell me what globalization is? Mr. Kudu, is it taking over the globe? Really? That's a good guess. Let's see if you're right. Globalization is when different parts of the world become more connected. So yes and no. It's not taking over the globe, it's connecting. As people, ideas, and goods move around the world, the experiences of the people around the world become more similar and connected. Everyone relates with one another. For example, during the age of exploration, ideas like Christianity were spread throughout the world. World economics became more connected. Good or bad harvests affected people in America, even though the harvest happened all the way in Europe. There was migration of people between Europe, Asia, and the New World. And there was colonization. Colonization, does anyone know what that is? Jen in the back, what do you think? I think colonization is when another country comes over and takes over that country. You're right. It's the process of setting an area away from your home. Colonization involves establishing control over the Native American people, the native people, in a living area. So they come over, they take over the land. This also goes hand in hand with slavery, by the way. Some motives for colonization was wealth and glory, religious belief, establishing military locations. Because if I have control of this area, that means another place can come. So if Spain owns a certain area, that means England can't come over and take it. So they would send a bunch of military over there, conquer all the people, and build bunkers, build farms, build whatever they needed, send back the material, take over the land, fight the other countries that were wanted the area. And also, they would fight the indigenous people. Then there was slavery. This was a big explosion of slavery. Slavery was a lot smaller then until before this happened. Slavery is the condition where humans are owned by other humans. From the 1400s to the 1800s, more than 10 million slaves were forcibly taken from the Atlantic to the Americas. Many people died on the journey. They were packed together so hard, just squished together, that many didn't survive. Additionally, some Native Americans were enslaved and forced to work for the European colonists. The Atlantic slave trade. I'm only going to talk about this for a little bit, but the majority of the slave trade was for goods, for slaves, and for money. Those are the three: goods, slaves, money. The slaves would get the goods would be sent back to the starting countries, Europe, for Britain, for instance. Money would be sent to get more slaves, and the cycle would continue, those three things. As we know, slavery is extremely horrible. They're treated awful. I'll go more on to this later on, guys. And then the Columbian Exchange. The Columbian Exchange is the exchange of disease, plants, animals, and humans between the Old World and the New World. So a lot of Native Americans didn't have the immune system that the Europeans had. Europeans, as we studied before, had the Black Plague. They had built up their immune system. But these Native Americans had never ever seen smallpox, measles, or mumps. So their body didn't know how to react. This killed tens of thousands and thousands of them. The Columbian Exchange also led to the movement of plants. As we know, can anyone tell me what fruits they see? What vegetables they see? Corn, tomatoes, potato, vanilla, chocolate, tobacco. All of these were brought back from the Americas to Europe and Asia, which they boomed. So on the farms that had slaves, they would plant this, they would pick it and then send it on a ship to Europe. Also, old world plants were brought to the Americas. So it's about back and forth. So from America came corn, tomatoes, etc. And then from Europe came citrus, apples, bananas. That way, so it was a trade of fruits and animals. Also, there were animals, fruits, and vegetables. Sorry, now I mentioned animals because of this. Animals were also brought from the old world to the new world. And finally, the Columbian Exchange also talked about the movement of people. Many Europeans and Africans migrated from the old world to the new world. Do you guys have any questions about the age of exploration? Okay, guys, for the last 15 minutes, I want you guys to complete the 2 worksheets I gave you. So please fill in what I learned. What is the age of exploration? What countries were involved? What factors contributed to the age of exploration? What were some effects of the age of exploration? Additionally, guys, I want you to complete a reflection. So I'll explain in detail one thing you learned about the age of exploration. Write 1 through questions that you still have. Tomorrow, as the bell ringer, we're going to discuss these questions. And finally, for something a little fun, I want you guys to draw something you learned. Also, please make this appropriate. I will be grading this. And if anything inappropriate is shown, I'll show Ms. Martinez. You guys will be written up. Thank you guys so much for having me. I'll be here if you guys have any questions. Thank you.